in time. And we are talking about very important chapter today, starting with a scope 2, and then we will go into a scope 3. Very important ones. Let's start with the scope 2 calculations and actual calculation method, which are used by governments as well as power companies in India. And today we are going to explore one of the most critical aspect not covered by most of the world. Okay. Why? Because it's a little tricky and the data is also not available, so people tend to ignore it. It's not that they don't want to do it, but data is not available, right? The data is only accessible to power companies, and power companies are large enough not to get approached by a normal consultant who are guiding today scope 1 or 2 or 3. So scope 2 emission calculation methods are those which represents indirect emissions, right? And we have two-word formula. How many of you remember that two-word formula? How many of you remember two-word formula? Yeah?
Purchased energy.
Absolutely. Very good. Purchase energy. Energy has four parts, which is Siley. Anybody else other than Dr. Satish? That is why
Heating,
I want
cooling,
to open the camera so I can ask you questions, right? Yes, Siley. Energy.
heating, cooling,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good,
and
good.
steam.
Steam and
One more,
electricity, as simple as
electricity.
that. Steaming, cooling, heating, and steam and electricity. These are the four different numbers which becomes a scope 2 formula. Now, it's often the largest source of emission today for service-based companies and organizations worldwide. It is the largest one. What makes this topic particularly important is that GHG protocol, which booklet you already have, now requires company to report scope 2 emissions using two distinct methods, not one. Okay. They recommend you should also do location-based method and market-based method together. So dual reporting they recommend. But what we are doing, we just take the CEA data and close the matter. Understanding both method, how they differ is very important, which we are covering today, and how to calculate them as well, right? Of course, we can't do a large scale model here. That's impossible for me to do. That is your area of research. Go ahead and do it. The data are all available in any large corporate of power companies. You can take that data and simulate it, but we don't have access to that data and we are not going to do that simulation. What we will learn is step-by-step methods. So tomorrow you get an opportunity. Of course, you should not decline. You should work with them, right? So, and please understand how to calculate them correctly is essential for actual accurate climate reporting, target setting, and demonstrating progress towards sustainability goals. So over the next half an hour to 45 minutes, that is what we will be covering for a scope 2. I will be walking you through a step-by-step calculation system for both methods, completed with work numericals example as well. Okay, at a smaller scale. Of course, I will not go and simulate, thousands and thousands of data points here because we are doing only for one company and we will show you that four-step model. Clear? So if you will leave with, if you stay with me till end, focus on the slides, not anywhere else. And that's why you need to start your camera. So I know you are focusing here. And then we will cover that by end of today. You understand how to implement market-based or location-based calculations. Clear? Very important one. Let's start with the fundamental of what exactly is a scope 2. And according to GHG protocol, scope 2 encompasses indirect GHG emission from the generation of purchase electricity, purchase steam, purchase heat, or cooling consumed by reporting, right? If you are reporting all these for your organization, you are calculating a scope 2. The key word here is indirect, remember that, and that two-word formula. These emissions don't occur at any facility you own or control. Remember that. Clear? It happens outside of your facility most of the time if you don't have a captive unit. If you have a captive unit, it is a part of a scope 1, not 2. Are you with me? If you have a captive electricity generation unit, and large companies like JSW, Tata Steel, they might have a captive unit inside their factory or even a little outside, but in their owned or controlled facility. In that case, it is scope 1. And that is another differentiator you should be knowing. And large company do report under scope 1, not under scope 2. So scope 2 emissions only occurs at power plants, district heating plants or facility, right? Which supplies, heating across the city. In India, it is very rare, but in Jammu and Kashmir, you might be finding very soon. There is a company which is planning for district heating in their industrial area. Okay? Or Ladakh. But in India, it is rare. In Europe, you will find daily basis. Or any other energy generation sites owned by the utility or other entities. Any energy generation sites. That's what we are talking here. Clear? However, these emissions are direct consequences of your organization's energy consumption. Hence, it is scope 2. Because you need it, they generate this power. If you don't need it, of course, they will not generate this power, right? Either they will move out of your locality or they will go somewhere else and do it. Are you with me? That is why it is scope 2, not scope 1. So let me emphasize the scale of this issue. What is that issue? Electricity and heat generation, which accounts for at least 1/3 of global GHG emission today. Remember this part, 33% of global emission is happening because of either heating or electricity generation. In India itself, the number is very high, around 27%. Okay. So these are few statistics which are mind-boggling, and that's why scope 2 has to be in everybody's book. For many companies, specifically those who are in service sector, we tend to ignore this part, right? Think technology company, financial service company, retail company. Scope 2 can represent up to 70 to 90%. Forget about scope 3. Right? Of their total carbon footprint today. So looking at the key characteristics of scope 2, which is indirect, occurs at the facility owned by others, which results from your energy consumption, represents a massive portion. Yeah, massive portion of the global emission. What is included here? Any electricity you purchase from the grid, steam you buy from the heating or industrial processes, district heating or cooling systems, right? In India, cooling system, cooling district cooling is a phenomena. It's happening in certain places, right? And even electricity used to charge your company electric vehicle, all of this fall under scope 2. Remember that. So when you do the charging of your vehicle, that charging, even though it is happening through renewable energy, can be part of scope 2 if it is not owned by you, of course. If somebody is putting a charging station, and in Bangalore, if you go Infosys, Wipro, etc., people are going and installing charging stations, and these are different companies. Okay, when they install this with the solar panels or directly grid system, they are responsible for paying that grid system, not you. Hence, you get a charging station which is falling under scope 2 emissions. Are you with me? So Wipro or Infosys, they have charging station, put by some other companies, and that company emission is your scope 2 emission. This widespread impact is exactly why the GHG protocol has developed. Such detailed guidance on how to measure, report this emission accurately is listed there. And I'm referring to that booklet only today. Clear? So please go and read it whenever you get time, because I'm covering it for you. And here comes why dual reporting matters today. Why you not only report to location
Sir, one
based,
doubt.
which is readily available in India, then also consider market based going forward. I'm not saying in past it was necessary. Why? Because the greed was independent. Yes, Dr. Satish Kumar, tell me.
Sir, the electricity generated from the solar panels not included.
Electricity generated by the solar panels of which company? Owned by which company?
Owned by my company.
Then it will not be the part of scope 2. It will be part of scope 1 emission. Because you own that solar panel.
Okay, sir, fine. Understood.
And secondly, always remember, solar panel will be your carbon credit arrangement. You have to understand that. There is no emission here.
But some of the references they have given some emission data.
No, that emission of 0.041,
Yes.
0.041 is your captive capital maintenance emissions. It is for capital goods, this emissions are. Look, when you buy a wafer, solar panel to put it to your captive unit of your solar panel, rooftop solar, they say, right? Rooftop solar. When they
Yes, sir.
put that, you can show it in your scope too, but it is so small, most of the time people ignore that. Second, if they include for the maintenance part of it rather than actual emission. You tell me where the emission will happen. Where the emission will happen here. From the process might be little bit of because 25 year is lifespan of any solar panel, it may be degrading, correct,
Yes, sir.
and that chemical reaction is the part of that emission or grid through which it is connected to. Grid means there will be wires which will be connecting, so there
Yes.
will be energy loss. So those are the point which you can include, but point here is renewable energy is always a positive part of carbon emission, right, which is carbon credit. You won't be reporting it that zero point 0.4 emission is happening. You will be also reporting zero point 0.4 here, and then I have 200 tons of carbon credit. Why? Because you have avoided 200 tons of carbon from grid coal
Yes, sir.
plant if your grid is coal, right? So this is why people tend to ignore. But of course, you can put it in. If you want, then scope 2 will be there 0.04 tons of per unit, right? Per unit of per kilowatt hour of your emission. But that is very, very debatable right now. There is a efficient system has come which is sticking solar panels. How many of you have seen? You can stick the solar panel on the wall even. How many of you have seen that? This is the new technology, again, Chinese, right? Chinese are developing it. But you can stick on the wall. The only problem with that is the age is 20 to 25 years. But it is as effective as solar panels, which are huge and bulky. And even steel is not required in this because steel is a captive scope 3 emission, right? Any structure which you create for solar panel is a scope 3 emission, not a scope 2. So, gentlemen, everyone who is not aware about it, and I have not covered scope 3, so I'm just letting you know the solar panels or installation of solar panels and the wires and the grids, etc., which you can create for your own captive unit will not be part of scope 2. As simple as that. Let's keep it very clear for people who are starting their journey. For people like Dr. Satish Kumar, who has already seen, for them there is a emission operation factor 0.041, but it is debated, not authorized. Why? Because it's not covered under location based. Are you with me? It is not covered under location based. So let me define for you what is location based and what is market based. Now, here is where the things gets interesting, ladies and gentlemen. So good you started that question, Dr. Satish Kumar. That gave me a background to educate people thoroughly now, right? The location based or market based is the core innovation of scope 2 today of guidance. Scope 2 guidance, it is a core innovation. Nowhere else you will find location based and market based. GHG protocol today requires company to report using both the methods. They recommend not one or other, both. Why? Because each method tells you something different and both perspectives are valuable for decision making. Both. What is that which is valuable? So let's look into the location based first. So you will get a clarity, which is on the left, right? This method specifically shows where the emission occurs, exactly the place. It uses the grid average emission in that locality or a grid average emission factor for that locality. Essentially, what's the average carbon intensity of the electricity grid? And look, they are not saying carbon emission, they are saying carbon intensity. That should go in your notes. So what this emission factor shows? This emission factor, which is location based, shows what is the average carbon intensity of the electricity grid in your locality or the region where you are consuming your energy. Very clear. Write it very clear. Put double inverted comma, maybe box, maybe red, highlight, because this is most of the people miss whenever they talk about location based. Even you will search in CEA, Center for Electricity Authority booklet 2025, you will find, you have to find for your region. the specific emission factor, not anybody's else, not average. Don't do average. Okay. Last year it was how much in 2022, 2023? The average was 0.712. That number has changed now. Clear? So this method reflects the physical reality of the grid mix, which is coal, natural gas, and nuclear, along with renewable blend. So location based shows you that, right? Location based shows you that. And remember, location based method has a universal applicability. You can use it anywhere in the world, not limited to the grid, which is only renewable or without renewable. You can apply everywhere. Okay. And remember, because why this happens? Because every grid has some form of average emission factor. So coal has a emission, a specific emission factor, because coal is releasing carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, methane, SF6. You know, it is SOx, NOx also is coming out of coal if you burn it. Slow, hot, heat, whatever method you use. And every method will have a different kind of emission, by the way. Okay, so you have to be also careful about what is the source of coal. And then only they calculate. That's why nobody does this exercise live. Why? Because you don't know how many factors you will consider in the calculation. So when you have that data, that they will tell you 20% of the coal is coming from Australia, 30% is coming from Jharia plant, 25% is coming from Maharashtra, whatever location they give you, then only you start your calculation. You cannot start calculation just at the level of coal has been burned. Let's check the how much of gas they have emitted. So critically, it's an independent of your procurement decision because it's an average. Otherwise, it is linked to the plant, a specific plant and their procurement policy. Hence, people prefer an average rate, right? Average number, location based, average number specifically for your region. Because in your region also, there might be three plants, same company, same operator. They have a three different furnaces. Gas-based furnaces, coal-based furnaces, all are available now. Mix is happening at the plant level. Have you heard about it? NTPC is doing retrofitting right now. How many of you heard about that? NTPC has been doing retrofitting from gas, from coal they are shifting to gas. किसी ने सुना है कि इंडिया में मैसिव स्केल पे होने जा रहा है, वो हो भी रहा है. Nagarjuna, Thomas, Pratik, Sekhar, Manu Goel, who are keeping their camera on, Arpit, right? Rajiv ji, you are you aware about that? So remember, this is another fact of the market today. Gas-based plants are replacing the coal plate based plants. Of course, it's a massive cost for the government of India, right? And that is why location based is very much applicable in India today. But what I told you in the beginning, GHG protocol recommends and requires both. So when location based is useful, of course, it is useful when you are comparing facility across different regions, making a decision where to site new operation. So if you are an environmental conscious or you know your major emission is scope 2, you can make your decision of putting new plant in that area where average is lower. That region average carbon intensity is lower. Clear? That is the decision you have to make. Or tracking how grids are decarbonizing over time. So you can go to the area, right now might be very high, but you know this area is getting nuclear, this area is getting renewable. For example, Pune, Maharashtra. Genco has done 4 different contracts right now with NTPC company called NPICL. What is that plant? That is thorium-based nuclear plant, ladies and gentlemen, changing the whole equation of the world. Okay, and if that gets successful and Maharashtra is able to show output, there will be massive change. So now comes the market-based method. Clear? Location-based, everyone clear? Any doubt here? Very important concept, okay? Let's go to the market-based. Market-based method, on the right-hand side, if you show, what you choose will decide your output or emission intensity. What do you mean by that? What you choose? This method uses contractual instrument. So they believe in contracts. So whenever you will be doing a market-based method, you need to look into the contract. Are you with me? So they look into contractual instrument, things like renewable energy certificates, power purchase agreements, or green tariffs from your utility. Okay. So if utility is providing you that, you will be looking into exactly the same. So it reflects your active procurement decision actually and corporate strategy. It reflects your active procurement decision and corporate strategy eventually. The market-based method required these instruments to meet specific quality criteria. Market-based instrument requires what? These instruments to meet a specific quality criteria, which we will be discussing in detail in coming slide. Why? Because its availability varies. Its availability varies with market. Some region have mature certificate market where certificates are authentic, can be verified, and has a proper market to trade, like Europe, UK, not India, unfortunately, till date. Yeah, others don't have, including India. So when market-based is useful, as simple as when you are tracking the progress toward renewable energy targets. So if you are able to do that, what is the Indian renewable energy target? The new one, the old one, forget it. We already crashed that. What is the new target for India and renewable energy?